Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, October 29, 2023. Coming at you live at Floored Media in Rockville Center. Have a very, very special edition of Hockey Night in New York tonight. Special guest Thomas Hickey, drafted 4th overall by the LA Kings in 2007. 456 career NHL games, all with the New York Islanders, 22 goals, 95 assists, 117 points, a two-time World Junior Championship gold medal champion, captain of one of those teams, by the way. And he's joining us tonight. We're thrilled to have him. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me, as always, is Mr. Stefen Rosner. Stefen, Thomas, how we doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for coming down. Much appreciated.
I'm doing great. Let's
you doing all right, buddy?
Let's get this going. Yeah, we're good.
All right. So before we get underway, I want to send out a great thanks to our sponsors, presented by Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Satisfy your hunger at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington, 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip, and check out the menu at BlueLineDeli.com. Also, a big thanks to Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. And a big thanks to Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law, New York's premier trial lawyers, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. And wanted to start the show here just to send out a condolences to the friends and family of Andrew Johnson. If you haven't heard, yesterday playing for the Nottingham Panthers over in England, there was a collision, an accidental skate caught him in the neck, and unfortunately he passed away. So just a big condolences to him. And maybe this is an opportunity for leagues like the NHL to maybe look out for neck protection for the players. Any thoughts on that, Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, perhaps, yeah. With terrible things often come change, and you know, it's not like it doesn't matter what league it is, and obviously the word travels far and wide. And you know, I remember seeing, you know, there was a whole neck guard. I don't want to say dilemma, but awareness raised when I was younger, and we had to start wearing neck guards. Like, change is created, and who knows what will happen at the NHL level, but I think everyone, it hits close to home because a fluke can happen to anyone. So it's just awful. Yeah,
absolutely. So once again, a condolences to the friends and family of Andrew Johnson. And Thomas, once again, thanks for joining us here. I wanted to start talking with you about just your career on the ice. Obviously drafted by the LA Kings. Things didn't exactly work out there. You kind of got a new lease on life with the New York Islanders, claimed on waivers in the abbreviated 12-13 season. You got your first taste of playoff action that year. Maybe we can just talk about, you know, that whole situation where you come to the New York Islanders, you get another chance at the league, you obviously break onto the team, you have a great career with the team, and just maybe talk about that for now.
Yeah, I think, you know, now that I'm finished playing, it's fun looking back, and things make a lot more sense now. But, you know, when I look at my career as a whole, like, really thankful for the time I spent in LA's organization, even though I never played there. You know, not everything goes according to plan, but it sets you up for opportunities like I had here. And now I look at my career and I can't imagine if things had gone differently and I was never an Islander and never got to live here and play here and meet the people, the community, the friendships that you make. So grateful for it. And yeah, it happened quick. I got to a point in LA that, you know, I missed some time. I was drafted high, had a couple really bad injuries and surgeries, missed a ton of hockey, and they did a great job drafting other players and guys that were more prepared and deserved at the time that they were needed to be key pieces and be part of Stanley Cup runs. And I missed that window, and it was really tough for me. At the same time, I had to dig deep and just sort of start anew. And you know, I was playing some really good hockey right when the lockout was in full-fledged, and I was still able to play, and people were watching, and the timing just worked out really good. I was playing confident hockey at the time, probably the best hockey I played in the American League, and thankfully Gar Snow and company had an eye on me and found me, and from there it was history. But it happened really quick, and those are those quick windows that you got to be prepared for, and I'm thankful I was.
Yeah, the mental aspect of the game is something that's talked about so much more now. Being that high of a pick, how much pressure was there on you?
There was a ton, but not as much as guys deal with now. Like, that was before social media, before Twitter. I mean, Twitter was probably around, but I didn't have it. You know, there's online, the presence wasn't huge, and I think I never looked at stuff anyways, but the pressure that I put on myself and the expectations that you have, I was never someone that thought anything would be given to me by any means at all. But at the same time, you see other guys around you not getting things given to you, but going out and earning them. And it was missing a bunch of time. It was difficult, and you do feel it. And I think at the time I would have said, oh, I don't feel the pressure. I'm just doing my best. But you look back and I'm like, I was an 18-year-old kid, 19. Like, yeah, of course I was feeling the pressure. There was a ton. And you'll learn a lot. That helped me much later in my career. So, it's one of those things that did I come up short at the time? Did I feel the pressure? For sure I did, but really learned from that and used it later on in my career. So it worked for sure, but definitely Stefen, there's a lot of pressure with that. And I sympathize with guys that are picked really high and things don't work out, because you can still have a great career and not fulfill someone's expectation of what they had. But yeah, definitely a lot of pressure.
Right on, Thomas. And into your career, a few years in, you formed a very strong D partnership with Lubomir Veznovsky. You obviously had that big 7-game series against the Caps. It didn't go the Islanders' way, but maybe we can start by just talking a little bit about that pairing with Lubo. And it seems like you guys had a very tight relationship there on the ice. I
loved Lubo, and I give him a ton of credit for the biggest thing that he did was he put confidence in me. Like, he instilled it in me, and I learned a ton from watching him play. I think you can watch anyone play hockey and you're going to learn about their game. You get to play with them and you learn different things, and he was always giving me tips, tricks, cheats, anything, because at that time he was in his late 30s. He'd been around the league for a long time, an all-star. He'd put up so many points, and there'd be things where maybe you defend it differently, but other times it was just encouragement, like, hey, you're doing great, I love playing with you. Or, hey, third period, like, we're down 2 goals, don't stop and start. It's things your coaches would be like, no, you better stop and start. But he'd be like, you're going to waste too much energy, like, you need to get up the ice. We both do, let's go. And those are things that I wouldn't have been taught, or be like, hey, like, don't tie your skates up so tight, like, the ice is really quick tonight, and like, we're down 3 goals already, like, you need to get up the ice. Little things like this, he was always thinking about that. And I just think when I look at him play, it was funny. He was a left-handed shot guy that couldn't really play the left side. Like, he could. Lou was a great player. He could play forward if you wanted him to, but he was strictly playing on his offside all the time. And for me, I loved that, because we developed this bond and this chemistry, and I knew that I could just zip it right over to him like he was a right-handed defenseman, and he'd be able to put it on net with a one-timer immediately. Like, he built so strong, he could one-time absolutely any puck, and that made it easy. We created a lot more offense than you would have with a traditional left-right combo. And outside of that, like, just the way he navigated up the ice, he was a great skater. Like, people give him a lot of credit for it, but he wasn't that fast. He moved well, and I learned from him that you don't have to be super fast to be efficient on the ice, and that's a lot I learned from him. So I love Lubo. We still text now and then, and he's
great.
Might be the the prime minister of Slovakia before long. I know he loves it back there, but everyone has good things to say about Lubo, and I miss him.
Yeah, you guys are an excellent pair, and you could kind of tell maybe a little bit after the fact that you guys are pretty tight out there, because you had a certain happening there in that 7-game series against the Washington Capitals. Lubo gets taken out by Tom Wilson, and I have to say it was very noticeable to me in games after that when you guys played the Caps. You kind of had it out for Tom Wilson. Maybe you could just touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have it out for him. Like, that's
probably fair, yeah.
Right, that's the way he plays, and like, that's why he's an effective player. That's why he gets paid the way he does, because he's got a presence on the ice, and he knocked Lubo out of that series, and clean, dirty, in between, whatever you want to call it. Like, that's a really good friend that you're not just worried about, can they play the next game? Their career is, threatened, and Lubo was able to come back and make an attempt at playing again after that, which was great, but it sticks with you. And I think when you're competitive, you get knocked out of the same team in the playoffs, and you see them over and over and over again, and a guy that starts a lot of stuff with the physicality that he brings, like Tom Wilson, like, he's probably got a dozen or 2 dozen guys in the league that that want to give him an extra shot every single time because
Sure.
he goes around and gives it to you. And certainly when he was on the ice, I didn't want to shy away. Like,
You were not.
I'm not going to pretend that if we got in a fight, like, yeah, he'd kill me, right? He's big and strong, but
Right.
if you can do anything within the rules or those little moments in the game when you could, always wanted to because he'd be looking to give it to you before you give it to him if you didn't.
For sure. And speaking of that, I mean, you've had your fair share of heavy hits in your career too. I mean, Brian Boyle, I think in one of those Tampa series, Jonathan Drouin, I think even in that series against the Caps, you weren't known for your size, but you knew how to take the body.
Yeah, I think just growing up, playing defense, I played on my offside a lot. So I was a left-handed shot. I played a lot on the right, and I always found that I could catch guys off guard with that, and especially through junior, like a really physical player, and just part of that competitive nature. Like I love laying the body, and as you get older, not just older, but as you get to the highest competition, you really have to time your spots well. And I think, my better hits were often unassuming from the guys that I was putting the body on. The timing was a big part of that. And, I love watching hockey now, and I see someone make a nice open ice hit. It tells me a lot about that guy because you got to think it through, because those are plays that people can really get hurt. You can take really bad penalties,
Right.
and to time it out. So I always felt that was part of my game for sure, and liked catching a few people off guard.
No question.
Yeah.
When you look back at your career, was there one team that you just felt like you played well against? When you faced them, you looked at the calendar and said, "Okay, I'm ready for this one."
Yeah, sort of. I mean, there's weird things like, I wouldn't say the Minnesota Wild, I played great against them, but I'd love going into Minnesota. Like, there were certain rinks that growing up, you can watch them on TV, you can see things, but you get to go play in front of those fans. And Minnesota was a place for me that early on things go well, and then all of a sudden you play good, you feel good every time you go in that rink. Montreal was the same way. Different tradition. Sometimes there's just a feel in a building, and I wouldn't say it was so much there was a team that I loved playing against, but there was buildings that I loved going into because it felt like a different game, and it felt special every time. And Minnesota is one of those. Montreal, there's a handful of them that made it extra special every time. And then there's the other places that just strictly have to do with you being a New York Islander and has nothing to do with who you are. It's what the organization stands for, and it's going to be an exciting, entertaining, important game when you go in those buildings. You could Wells Fargo, MSG, the list goes on for how you felt as a player on the team, but individually those ones stood out to me.
Do you know what team you have the most goals against off the top of your head? Do you know?
I would assume it's
He knows.
I would assume it's in the Metro.
It is in the Metro. Do you want to take a guess, or?
I'd hope it's the Rangers.
It is the Rangers.
It's
4
Rangers.
goals, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well, we only scored so many, right? If you score more than 2 or 3, then yeah, that makes sense.
Not bad. So I actually wanted to go back to the big hits for a second because you raised something that I kind of wanted to ask you about. So it seems like, with these, when a guy gets laid out, right, and when it's dirty, when it's illegal, it hits somebody's head, something like that. Like, you got guys answering for that, and I get that. Mm-hmm. But it seems like now guys get blown up on a clean hit, and they're still answering the bell for that. I just wanted to get your opinion on that. If you think that's something that should be in the game, or you understand it, you see where it's coming from, or maybe when a guy gets his bell rung on a clean hit, maybe you kind of just let it go,
You should. This is a cultural thing, in my opinion. This is not. Yeah, I think it's easy to look at the players and go, look, someone got laid out. Like, you don't need to go fight them, let it go. This is a cultural thing. It's now part of our game, and guys understand that. No, you shouldn't have to fight after a clean hit. But the game now is so fast, and a lot of the times when someone fights after a clean hit, they're on the ice and they're paying attention to something that's going on, and it's out of the corner of your eye, and it happens so fast that, do you know if it's clean or not? Well, benefit of the doubt is not going to be given to you if it was a dirty hit and you looked at the guy and let him go away, and all of a sudden you're going to get in trouble for that. Not get in trouble, but the expectation, if you knew it was a clean hit, that you're gonna get in there, but whether you're gonna fight or start a scrum or just let the guy know that can't be done. There's a culture of that now, and with how quick the game is, I think it's so much harder to see dirty and clean. And oftentimes we're slowing down and watching replays over to find out
Yeah,
if it was
for sure.
dirty or clean. And that's minutes after someone's jumped in and had a fight. So it's got to come from, I believe, it's probably a rule change, but absolutely there shouldn't be fights after clean hits. And I think that every player will tell you that. And I think some guys would love to make a clean hit and say, yeah, I'll fight because of that, but you don't need to. And I think it's a cultural thing that will change as the rules change. But I don't blame guys that start fights right away because you're worried about, well, what if it was dirty? I couldn't see it. It happened too quick, and that's where we're at right now.
That's a great point. Like, it's easy for us as a viewer watching it, seeing the replays, being like, it's a clean hit. Just let it go.
Yeah.
But in that split second, if you are that teammate, you want to make sure you're taking care of your guy. If it was a dirty hit. So I totally get that. That makes total sense. But just regarding your career, is there like any one, just big takeaway from playing in the NHL? Something that I guess, that you just hold, valuable to you, whether it was a lesson learned or just an experience that you had, whether it was a game, a series, or anything. Like, when you look back on your NHL career, like, what do you say to what's the first thing that comes to mind? Like, yeah, that was amazing.
I mean, there's so many different things. I think when I get to this point, I'm just grateful for the relationships. And I know it seems like a cop out, but the people, hockey in general, it doesn't matter what level you play, the people that you get to meet and be friends with and like work with and go to battle with, those are the things that stand out the most. And I think there's bonds and relationships that come from that. And there's that. And then, I grew up wanting to do this, to play in the NHL. That was your goal from day one, and you finally get to fulfill those dreams. I think just thankful because there's so many things along the way that could prohibit you from getting to that point. So just a sense of gratefulness. But as far as any one thing or one moment, no, I don't have one. There's just so many little ones.
Right on, Thomas. Well, folks, want to thank you all for tuning in here to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. Hanging out with us here. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Thomas Hickey.
I don't want to hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it, I hate those Lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on, right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The train rolls on here at Hockey Night in New York. Stefen and I are joined by Thomas Hickey, now a studio analyst with MSG. So, Thomas, I wanted to kind of transition into that. And I saw a little nugget that before that happened, you were toying with the idea of heading over to Switzerland. So maybe you can chat a little bit about that and how that didn't end up working out and you ended up working at MSG.
Yeah, I was close. Like my wife's here tonight. We were sort of bags packed, ready to go play overseas, and I had an opportunity in Jersey to go on a PTO, and that was great. And I'm thankful that came up because I think things would have played out differently. It just fortuitous with timing with MSG, really, because I'd heard that they were maybe looking to fill the position. But I was fully intent on playing hockey. I didn't cross my mind that I was going to be retiring. Even though in the back of my mind, I thought about it, and I wanted to stay over here and play, and I wanted to be close to New York. And New Jersey was a good opportunity, and if not, it was going to Europe. And if things had lined up differently, just with if anyone's business, hockey, however it is, getting someone a contract and timing it out for everything to work, a few things need to fall in place, and those things didn't. And as soon as I got let go by Jersey the next day, I just picked up the phone and thought, I don't know anything about being an analyst. It could be cool. I'd like to know. And I wasn't feeling great at the moment. And I said, just pick up the phone. We'll just call and see what happens. And it took a couple weeks, but started talking to some people. And with that, the opportunity came about. But I'm just grateful that I picked up the phone and called, because maybe it wouldn't have, because I think especially for MSG or people making decisions, they see that you want to play hockey and they don't want to insult you, say, well, come do this, like retire.
Sure. Yeah.
And for me, it was 100% the right decision, but you don't know that in the moment. And as soon as I did, they had me on just pretty much to say hi and catch up. And I stuck around for post game, and there's a feeling that I walked away from that, like, this is fulfilling, and it's different. Hockey didn't end up the last few years. It wasn't overly fulfilling for me, and it felt a certain way, and I liked it. And as time's gone on, you have a different perspective of hockey. You're not playing, and you have a different responsibility, and freed up a little bit and see things a bit differently. And I'm just grateful that the timing of that worked out, because I could have been playing and maybe attempting to still play now, and it's nice to be on the sidelines.
How does the pressure? I know it's not the same thing as playing in the league, but how does the pressure, like when the camera's on and rolling?
I think it's the lead up to it more than being on. I'd compare it to hockey, to playing a game. Honestly, like you get excited. I don't want to say there's anxiety, but pressure. Like, people are watching and depending on you. Whether you're playing, you've got teammates that are depending on you. That's the greatest responsibility and pressure. And it's similar in television. There's always some butterflies before you go on. There's always that part of you that saying, did I prepare enough? And that's that mental check down that I still get from when I played. And that's what I think I love about it. I was shaking my first couple times on, like you probably couldn't tell what my legs were, because it was so foreign. I wasn't used to it. You don't know where to look, and I'm still learning so much, but I get that rush of excitement before we come on, and that little doubt that says, did I prepare? And I think that's the healthiest thing, because it lets you know that your routine, like you can reassure yourself that you did. Outside of that, of course there's pressure, and we have the greatest fans that watch and pay attention, and like, you want to be on for them, because I want them to know what I'm thinking and let them know what I think that they should know about. But at the same time, I can make mistakes. You can make mistakes. We all do. The good thing is,
I've already made about 4.
Right? And so have I, and it doesn't show up on the scoreboard. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I have, that, look, I'm still learning, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it. And I didn't let 20-some guys down. Yes, my team at MSG, it probably goes more unnoticed than with a team, and I think that was sort of the biggest thing, and it frees you up a little bit to enjoy it even that much more. So,
for the record, no formal training, no classes, because I know some athletes, after they're done with their careers, they kind of get some training before they kind of jump in and all that. And when they said, oh, Thomas Hickey's going to join us on the MSG broadcast, and I was like, I didn't have that on my bingo card, but let's see how this goes. And you were a natural, man. Like, you're kicking ass with MSG.
Well, I appreciate it, but I'm getting coached up, and people are helping me big time. Like Joel Mandelbaum, director, Steve Knapp, our producer, Napolitani. He's great. He helps me. Like, everyone coaches me in their own way behind the scenes, and I've still got a lot to learn. Like, I consider myself still raw, but I've got a lot of people in my ear. Shannon makes it easy for me. There's so many people that are slowly training you, whether they know it or not, but the little tips are helpful. But naturally, like, I felt good answering questions, and you get interviewed so much playing hockey that you're used to that side of it. So that part of the adjustment wasn't huge, and thankfully, can handle myself well in that sense, and work on the others. But definitely, people are helping me out. Yeah.
Right on.
You spoke about routine. How hard is it for you to get out of the routine of every day being a player, and now you're not playing anymore? How do you break that? Or was it hard to break that?
Yeah, super hard to break. The routine of having a routine is the most important thing. And this was the first summer that I didn't train to intend to play hockey, even though last year I did. So Monday to Friday, or like whatever you have your schedule laid out, there's something going on. And this year, in the summer, I didn't work that often, and that was different for me. And I think you learn something about yourself. Like I do crave routine. I like knowing what my schedule looks like and how I can plan things out. Like my wife would tell you, I overplan for sure.
It's a good thing.
But hockey, it's so ingrained that certain times you got to show up. You can never be late. There's certain things you do to prepare with eating and nutrition and sleep and rest and so many other things. And they're sort of healthy habits that you build. And now that I've stopped playing, it's sort of just finding the balance of not over preparing too much and not being too much in a routine, and just try to enjoy the fact that I'm not a professional athlete anymore, and you don't have to live every day like that. So
Sure.
trying to distance myself and find that sweet spot always.
So you mentioned seeing the game differently before. Do you have like a new appreciation for the game now that you're seeing it from a broadcaster's point of view?
I think the appreciation's the same. Like, bottom line, it's a game of mistakes. Every goal, every chance, every opportunity that happens on the ice, there's probably 3 or 4 mistakes that led to it. And as a player, I knew that. And as a defenseman, you're always guarding against it. Now I'm in my position. I still have that same appreciation for it, but it's less about finding the mistakes and finding the people that really took advantage of small little mistakes. And I think that's that's my intention, is to highlight that to fans, because I think that's where you see like really high end skill or really good hockey in those little moments. And that's sort of what I get to focus on. But when you're not worried about yourself making mistakes, you get to see the game a little bit differently and a little bit freer. And I watched a ton of hockey growing up, and I played and everything. But now, when you're able to highlight some of these good things that happen when there's like a little micro mistake and someone takes advantage of it, I love that. I love being able to look for those moments. Yeah.
Always so interested with this. Obviously, you're on the media side now, so you're answering questions too, but you're asking them as well. I guess, what is the relationship like when you're an everyday NHL player and, the media comes in after a morning skate, the media comes in after practice? Is that something where, what was it like for you, I guess, where, you face the media?
Yeah, for me, when I was, when I was playing, I don't think I was ever the guy that was, people scored a lot more goals, or, were in situations where they'd want to talk to them. And I felt like when I was, it wasn't like it was too much for me. And I never got to the point where it was, oh no, I've got to answer questions again. And I think it was that perfect sweet spot, and it allows you to give more genuine answers. Absolutely. For some guys that you could get asked the same question 7 times in a day. That's reality, because, Stefen, if you're talking to Mark over in this corner, and then you get back to me and you don't know that someone just said the same question, right? So I think I understand when guys give pretty simple, plain, cliche, boring answers, because you get asked a lot of the questions at the same time. So hockey players are not interesting. Hockey players are bad interviews, right? We know that. That's the reality of it. Guys are built that way, and no one wants to talk about themselves because it is about the team. And I think those are genuine cool things. Like that's why I love hockey, but it's tough to crack that shell. So I think the media does such a good job, the hockey media does such a good job trying to find ways in and trying to find ways where you can see behind people and it's still authentic. And when those moments happen, it's fun for me to watch, to sit back and see someone find that middle ground. But I think it's difficult. Hockey guys are tough to get a good, true, genuine answer out of.
Awesome stuff, Thomas. And before we take a break and start talking about the current New York Islanders, just want to throw a couple of rapid fire questions at you.
Cool.
Who was the toughest player that you ever played against in the NHL?
Toughest in what sense?
Toughest to defend, toughest in any way, shape, or form. Like the most skilled guy you might have played against, somebody who wowed you when you were, he was coming in on you, crossing the blue line. You're like, oh man, what am I going to do here?
In that sense, I'd probably go Patrice Bergeron, like someone that will never give you anything. Yeah, like breaking the puck out, I always found for me was an area for me to get an edge. Like I felt I did that well. Mm-hmm. He'd never cheat, and you could never use a little deception to throw him off. He was such an honest player, at the same time so smart that he just needed an inch to make the play that he wanted to. So in that sense, he was so tough to play against.
You have any superstitions before you played? Something you did every time?
Yeah, I never had superstitions in the sense that I followed things throughout my whole career, but there would be little things that if I played well, or perhaps if we won, whatever it may be, it's like, you realize, I know that I put my right glove on before my left glove, and put my mouth guard in my glove this certain way, and you keep on doing that until you lost or until you played bad. But it was never the same thing. It was just always something, and you realize like your mind's keeping track of everything you do.
Well, speaking of superstitions and procedures and whatnot, I know this is something that was important during your playing career, and I'm curious if it translated over to being in the studio. Are fish oil still an important part of your regime?
Remember that they aren't, and they probably should be. I remember, Brock Nelson's never let me down on that one. So
that was outstanding.
That was a long time ago. I almost forgot about that. That's good.
He did his research,
I did. All right, what else we got here? Best city to play in outside of Long Island, of course.
I will just give one. Like I said before, I had success there playing in Minnesota, playing in St. Paul. Different feeling, and Montreal. I'll throw that one in there. Two different hockey atmospheres, but I loved playing in both.
Funniest teammate?
That's Lubo Wisnowski was actually sneakily extremely funny. Guys always got a crack out of him. There's so many guys.
Any stories, maybe quick stories you can share with us that maybe fans and listeners don't know about?
Eric Bolton, you wouldn't think that he's funny, but a great sense of humor, quick, dry, witty. Guys that had, like Anders Lee, to me, and a lot of people would tell you this, but you might not know if you went and talked to him, but he can crack me up like in so quickly, and he could do it in a way that you might not know that he's making a joke, but if he knows you're in the room, like it's subtle, and he does it really good. So Anders is probably an easy one, and I don't think a lot of people have him come to mind when they think funny, but he can crack anybody up.
Yeah, he's very professional behind the microphone.
Yeah, he is.
And last one, and probably most importantly, given the holiday, what are you going to be for Halloween?
I'm gonna hand out candy, and I know that's such a lame one. My wife, her favorite day is Halloween. Like outside of Christmas, pretty much. So we get into the mood and we hand out candy. We watch all the trick or treaters come, but we don't have kids ourselves yet, so we like to sit back and see what everyone else is doing. And where we are, it's Halloween is everything. So we sit out on the front step and we'll carve some pumpkins, and we definitely get in the mood, but no costumes this year.
Fair enough. Or maybe next year. A little disappointing, but maybe next year.
Very disappointing.
All right, folks. Want to thank you so much for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. Thomas Hickey, former New York Islander and current studio analyst for MSG, is with us. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more with Thomas Hickey. We'll talk about the current Islanders.
New York Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow @HockeyNightNY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Did you have a nice break? Well, it's time to get back on the couch for more Islanders therapy on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, folks. Welcome back to the program. You are watching and or listening to Hockey Night in New York. And before we dive into the current New York Islanders, I want to tell you about our friends at Main Street Board Game Cafe in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun, and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join our Magic the Gathering Dungeon Dungeons and Dragons. Lorcana and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe, find your crowd, unplug your game. So, getting to the current New York Islanders, they're currently 4-2-1 with 9 points in the standings. What do we like so far? What needs some more attention, Thomas Hickey?
I think what I like so far is if you were to look at this hockey team at the start of the year, people would say, well, what needs to happen for them to make the playoffs? You would say goaltending needs to be great. We know that that's the backbone of this hockey team. Ilya's been sensational, and Varley looks sensational as well in his 2 starts. And I think you'd also say, well, if this team's going to make the playoffs, then we sort of need to see Bo Horvat look like he did with Matt Barzal right when he got traded here. They've looked like that. You would need to say that Palmieri, Nelson, and Engvall weren't just guys that got hot for 30 games, that they can play like a 1A or a 2A, or a 1B first line, and they've looked like that. And then I think you'd need to see it scattered throughout the lineup as well. And when you look at it, timely goals from the fourth line, they're playing like a team, I guess is what I'll say. And that's what stands out to me to this point. And at 4-2-1, probably right where they should be. Sort of stole a point against New Jersey, you could say, but outside of that, lost the games that they should have lost, and found a way with as good as Ilya is. It seems like they have an understanding of what they are, and the questions or the doubts that people could have at the start of the season have been answered in a good way so far. And reminder, extremely small sample size, right? 8 games into the hockey season, or 7 games in. It's not a lot of hockey, so it's hard to tell, but that's sort of what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I guess the power play would be the other thing, is that the power play has to be just a tad better. It doesn't really have to be that much better, just clicking it a tad better. And I think maybe it hasn't had much success so far, but it seems like Dobson's the key to everything, and his confidence is so high now in all areas of his game, and I think we're seeing it seep into the power play. I mean, he's moving the puck quick now.
No, I'm glad you said that, Stefen, because that's, as I was going through everyone from goalies to forwards, I didn't touch on the D, and that was the other thing. Can Noah Dobson take a step and, be more than a good defenseman and turn into this is a guy we could see like that at the end of the season, every team would say, we'd like to have him on our top pair. He's a bona fide, rising star defenseman. Once again, it's 7 games, but Noah's taken massive steps. And when I talk to the guys in the power play, they're always talking about Noah. Like, is Noah moving his feet? Can he move it quick and get it through? And I think he's been doing those things. You've seen the results. Has the power play been great? No, but as you said, Stefen, somewhere between somewhere in the middle of the pack would be adequate for a group that got by with it being very bad last year. I think it will be a work in progress with the power play, but when you see them score early, I feel like it carries over throughout the game, and avoiding these long stretches, I think there's this psychological lag that happens when you go 0 for 4 and guys feel it, even if they're not thinking it. It'd be nice to see them, not go too long without it. And then I think when you see them score, the next one's really good and it's really crisp. So I'm a true believer. Power play is really about momentum and confidence. That's the biggest thing. These guys are all NHL players. They can all play on power play ones. Are you feeling good about yourselves? And I think if they can get rolling, that's what can sort of turn you from a bad power play to okay, or okay to really good. It's that confidence. And I hope we see more opportunities without taking a penalty. That's been the worst part of it, right? Like, get a power play and then you take a penalty yourself, and that kills everything as well. So better than it was last year, no doubt. Room for growth for sure. Noah's a big part of it, but it's been better.
They just got to stay out of the box. Let's
Yeah, too many penalties, and really, like, long-term discipline-wise, am I worried that this is an undisciplined hockey team? No, I'm not at all. Have they taken too many penalties? Absolutely, and I think we got to find out, since it's only been 7 games, is that because maybe are they a step behind or something? Is it circumstantial? Is it bad luck? Those are questions that will get answered after 15 games, but it's tough to tell right now.
Yeah, I think some were circumstantial. Like, it had Palmieri got tripped up in one play and just ended up just inadvertently swinging the stick into a guy's face. There's nothing you can do about that.
There's been a lot of those like quick reactions. Oh, someone stepped on my stick. Well, is it a trip? Yes, it's a trip.
Right.
Was that a undisciplined penalty? Not really. There's been so much of that this year that I'll look to the side and see 7 more games and then assess it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And before we step into the hero, just want to talk a little bit about the relatively new guys in town, and that's Bo Horvat and Pierre Engvall. You mentioned Horvat before, but what value have these guys shown to the team so far? Now that they've started with the team through training camp, Horvat's already got some points on the board. I think Engvall looks great on the second line with Palmieri and Nelson. Maybe you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll go with Engvall first, and I talked to a lot of people in Ontario and Toronto and media specifically, and their big question is they had so much frustration with him being a Toronto Maple Leaf because he flashed and he showed how good he could be, and then he would go quiet. And what I tell them is he's been extremely consistent. I thought his second game as a New York Islander was bad. That was the only bad game I've seen him play. And outside of that, he's consistently been a really good player. And I think people need to understand that just because you're 6'5" and you skate really well doesn't mean you need to be physical. He uses his legs to check and his stick to check. And as long as he's doing that, and I do believe, like, to all those people that have asked me those questions, I think he's been a more consistent player. I don't know whether that's coaching or whether that's growing up or whether that's seeing an opportunity and take advantage of it like he did. But he's been a consistent guy, a consistent player, and his speed changes this roster because it's not an overly fast team, but he can go from a standstill to get moving and just use his feet to get out of trouble rather than maybe throwing a puck away like other guys have to do, like I would have had to have done myself as, I'm a defenseman obviously, but it's a big deal. So I think Engvall, he's been consistent and he's been a factor with his speed on the forecheck. He's been really good. In playoffs was probably his best hockey last year. Like, looks like he's continuing on that trend, and that's good to see for someone that I'm not suggesting anyone would just play for a contract, but we've seen enough of it now to know that that's Pierre Engvall. That's maybe not just a good flash of Pierre Engvall. With Bo Horvat, he's been very, very good, and I think at the start of this season, when I saw it coming over last year, I was really excited about it. And there was so much responsibility put on him right away. He was killing so much with Barzy going down. The team just didn't have the depth, and it was like you needed to find him 2 players to play with. And I think the conversation this year was like, who's that other guy going to be with him and Matt? He drives play. If you watch him up and down the ice, he works extremely hard for the chances he gets. Like, yes, he's a good skater to begin with, but he's working his engine to get up to full speed, and a lot of that is coming back from his own end. He puts in the work, and I like to see when he gets rewarded because I think he plays better defensive hockey when things are going well for him offensively like they have been this year. A lot of good details in his game, but he surprised me when he came over last year. He's smarter than I thought. He's more competitive than I thought, and I think we're going to see him get to a higher level, like maybe halfway through the year. Like, they're still figuring each other out, still figuring out who's going to be on that line. Like, Anders has looked really good since he's been there, but Bo's he's a player, and I think for this group, like, to have another guy that's big in the faceoff dot and can win a ton of faceoffs, it's impressive to see the 4 guys that you can roll out over and over and over again in the faceoff dot, and to add a guy that can score a lot of goals like Bo, he's been good.
Yeah, I think both players have looked excellent so far, and hopefully that continues. And before we jump into Hero of the Week, just want to send a shout-out to our friends at Isles Fix. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the only Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at ilesfix.substack.com. So, yeah, a little shout-out to them at Isles Fix and Joe Bono. They do a great job over there, so big thanks for those guys kind of teaming up with us. And now we can get into the Hero of the Week. Folks, when you hear this song, that means it's time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels half-price hero, which this week is, of course, naturally, since we have one sitting with us here, the Blue Liner. featuring chicken cutlet, bacon, melted American, Russian dressing on a toasted garlic hero. Stop on in to the Blue Line Deli and Bagels Huntington location for half off the Blue Liner. So with that, Thomas, I think you have a pick yourself. We'll start with you. Who is your hero of the week?
Yeah, we're going to go Semyon Varlamov.
All right.
Varley, I know that he only played one game this week, but he was so good in Buffalo last week when Isles didn't really show up. It was a strange game. Varley was great to get a shutout last night. It's not just because Varley was Varley. It's the fact that this bodes so well for the team moving forward because I'm of the belief that, look, the team can run whatever goaltending situation they want. I think for the health of the team overall and for both goaltenders, you want to see Varley play more often, and to be able to throw him in against a divisional team, a Columbus team that played well last night by all accounts, and have Varley shut the door. Guys believe in him already, but you can perhaps get to a point where he's not going weeks without a start if he can provide you with that much quality and, prep to win games, just like Ilya is capable of. So for Varley, 2 phenomenal starts this season. He deserves it this week. He was a hero.
Love the pick. Stefan Rosner, who is your hero of the week?
Mine was Noah Dobson, and I think Hickey, the first game he played struggled, and you saw last year, and that gets him a little bit in terms of confidence, but he just snapped the 5-game point streak last night. He had 2 goals and 5 assists over that span. Just the confidence. Like I said, I feel like his 5-on-5 play is seeping into the power play, and with Mayfield out, he's playing on the penalty kill. I think this past week against Ottawa, 27-42 minutes, that was a career high. Clearly he's got more trust now. For Lane, I just think he's doing everything right. Quick puck movement. I think he just looks sharper, and when he's able to do stuff in the D zone, it's impacting him in the offense zone and the rest of the team. So he's been a huge bright spot.
Yeah, that's been a big question we've been asking on the show. Can Noah Dobson step it up on the D side of things? And so far, he's looking pretty good. So that's a great sign for the Islanders. And I'm going to give my hero now. That is Kyle Palmieri. Had a point every game this past week, 2 goals and an assist. He had the game winner versus Columbus, obviously that first goal. And he's been a point-per-game player so far this season. And it's nice to see him straight out of the gate because I feel like the first couple seasons he played on this team, he was a little slow. He took a little bit of time. I remember one year, I think it took him quite a while to get his first goal. And it's nice to see him right off the bat, putting points on the board. He looks good, and hopefully he can stay healthy. What do you think of Kyle Palmieri, Thomas?
Yeah, I agree with you, Palms. I think it was 2 years ago. It took a while, a couple little injuries, and there was a bunch of guys. Like I think JG that year. There was a handful of guys that it felt like it was 2 months into the season, and the questions were like, "Oh, this guy hasn't scored yet," or "This guy's only got 1 through 25 or 30." And I think for guys, it's nice not having to even think about that. And for Palms missing all of training camp to be producing like he is, like that line, I'm just, there's never any doubt that line's going to be together. And I think as a fan, in my position as an analyst, it's nice to have that set in stone, and things, of course, can always change, but that's been a boost. And to your point with Noah, I agree, and it is confidence, and that's what I see because he's capable. Like he was drafted in the spot he was for a good reason. And look, I was never as good as Noah was or as gifted, but coming out of junior, like I always found that if I could bring it offensively, my defensive game would follow, and things get simpler, and instinct comes, and you feel so much better, and you defend better. You're a little bit more in it because you know that you've already made up for it on the offensive side, and maybe you have a little bit to play with. And I think you can see that in Noah with how confident he is offensively. When he comes back and he starts defending, you're just a little freer and a little less worried about making mistakes. And I think you see it in his game. Even though he put up 50 points the last couple of years, it's a different feeling right now with what he's doing with the puck, and I think it shows in his own end as well.
And I think last year, too, with him playing with Aho, that's a bottom pairing minutes, and now that he's playing better defensively, that gives Lane the ability to run him like a top pairing, or with Pelech, wherever you want to do the minutes, and that's huge because the more he's playing, the more offense he's going to provide, and that's critical for this team.
Yeah, the way he's been getting up the ice, and look, it's responsibility. You're going to get into situations, probably maybe more so at home if that's the matchup they want to get. You never stop learning as a defenseman, and there will be mistakes and there'll be moments. Like every guy deals with them, but when you're playing with Pelly, you're getting the best players in the world, and of course there's going to be mistakes. But the big thing with Noah this year, there's been times when you make a mistake, but he follows right back up. Like last game, home game, A guy got behind him. They almost scored. You had a critical time. It didn't stop. He got right up the ice, and he went and scored the go-ahead goal, like the eventual game winner. That's what I've loved to see him this year. Like, you have a short memory. You need to, because you're going to be right back out on the ice.
All right, folks, so there are your heroes of the week. And now I think we're going to get into Questions Brewing before we wrap things up. Ed, cue the button.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead.
It's really time for Questions Brewing. So, Ed, Jay, how we doing back there, fellas? What's going on? How's the chat looking?
Doing good. We got a lot of questions for Thomas, obviously.
We will squeeze in what we can before we wrap the show up. So, Ed, give us some good ones here.
We're starting off with this from CGS878. He asked, would Mr. Hickey ever consider a coaching position?
Good question. I would never say never to anything, but the one thing that I know and understand is how much work it requires to be a coach in the NHL, and far more work than it's like as much work as you're doing as being a player, but probably more because you're at the rink more often, and with all the resources you have now, you can work from anywhere, and it's often the people that put in the work that have the success. And every coaching staff that I've had in the NHL respect it so much because these guys put in that work coming out of playing. I do consider myself to work very hard now, but it's a workload that I know what it's going to be, and to coach, I wouldn't be committed to that right now. No, that's more than I'd want to take on, and I got so much respect for the guys that do it.
An honest answer, Ed. What else you got?
Next, from Coach Jeff24 on Twitter, asks, the Islanders' D seem to give up a lot of high-danger chances and odd-man rushes. Is there a significant change in the coaching style with Lane? Would also be interested to know if he thinks splitting Pulock and Pelech is necessary and the impact on their play.
So that rush question, that's something that's stood out so far, and now that we have more advanced analytics and you can diagnose what type of play or what type of rush something is, that's something that stood out. And like I said, sample size is important to me, and 7 games isn't great, but the numbers off the rush don't look good now, and they didn't after 2 games or 3 games. So it's something to keep an eye on. I don't think that anything's changed. I remember at the start of last year, the Islanders got playing a little bit fast and loose and got bailed out a lot by their goaltenders. And then as the season went on, they sort of learned that, can we get away with it for stretches? Yeah, but can it bury us for stretches? It can. I'm interested to see what those numbers look like around the 10 and 15 game mark, because it is too much off the rush. And I don't think that it's a coaching decision to say we're going to play with fire and see how this happens. It's often mistakes that are made that lead to those. So I'm sure that it's being addressed and trying to be corrected, because it's noticeable to me, and I think for the coaches, they see that as well. You want to limit rush chances as much as possible. So that's been notable, and I think you're going to see those numbers go down. As far as Pelech and Pulock, I think it's an asset to be able to break up those guys and not have to play them together. Like I mentioned, if you want Noah to take the next step, he's got to play more impactful, meaningful minutes. And I think when he has, you've seen the growth that's come from what he's been able to do. And that means Adam Pelech doesn't get to play with Ryan Pulock, but Romanov plays his best hockey I've seen him play in his career when he's with Ryan Pulock. And Pulock does so many good things. We don't talk about him or notice him. It's because he's rarely making mistakes now and really turning into a guy that, yes, we know that what he can flash offensively and how good he shoots the puck, but I don't want to say he's going to another phase of his career, but I don't want to say he's redefining himself, but he's becoming a very efficient defenseman with less flash, and I think it's for the better for him and for this team. So splitting those guys up, maybe you're going to see them back together for 20 or 30 games at a time. Probably will at some point. Maybe if it's just for a few games at a time, but it doesn't matter. It's sort of how the team's playing, and if it's those guys are together and the team plays good, great. And if the team suffers because it stretches your depth, and split them up. It doesn't really matter to me.
There you go. Ed, what else you got?
Thomas Panic says, you left everything out there on the ice. which I think must have taken a physical toll. My question is, how are you feeling?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I feel good in the sense that I don't wake up hurting or sore. Definitely took a physical toll. I'm not a big guy, and there's days you get out of bed and wonder, why does this hurt or that hurt?
Sure.
Whether it was a puck that hit you like 12 years ago or something here or there. Thankfully, I feel good, and but it was my head was the big thing. You never wanted to get that last concussion, and
Sure.
I had some bad ones, but I'm thankful that never got to that point. And being sore in the morning is a reminder that I got to do what I love doing for a long time.
Great question, great answer. Ed, what do you got?
And Zeb09 asks, has there been a difference from? Oh, you know what? We're gonna do.
Audible here?
Yeah, because he has two. I've read the one that wasn't for Thomas. This one's for Thomas.
Fair enough.
Thomas, is there any alumni that have helped you either on the ice or off the ice that really made a big impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of guys. One that comes to mind, Andrew McDonald, former Islander, and I remember when I first got sent down to the minors, and he'd been through that, and it was a shocker and sort of a stun to the system for me. And not only did he go down and play in the minors for an extended period of time, but then he got back up to the NHL and was really good. And AMAC broke it down. Like, there was a lot of days where I was driving to Bridgeport from Long Island, because I lived here the entire time, and you need to rely on those guys that have been through there. And AMAC, he'd been through that, so he's an alumni that I reached out to. But the bigger sense of it is seeing the guys that won all the cups around. They're still around, and to know what winning does around here. So whenever I get an opportunity to rub shoulders with Brian Trottier or Bobby Nystrom, or see those guys or learn from them, and sadly we've lost a few of those guys lately. Like Clark Gillies, I got to meet him a few times and play golf with him, and that's an impact that gets left on you. You can see why he's so loved and so missed. So if it wasn't guys like AMAC, it's the guys that paved the way for everyone else, and you see how much people love them and respect them here.
For sure. Well, folks in the chat and anybody on Twitter, sorry if we couldn't get to your questions, but we had such a great conversation here with Thomas that we're already up against the hour, so we got to wrap it up here, folks. So cue the music, Edzo. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York here at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY, and of course your favorite podcast providers. I want to extend a huge thanks to our special guest here, Thomas Hickey, MSG studio analyst, and of course former New York Islander. Big thanks to Thomas, and of course a big thanks to our sponsors, starting with Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington and 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. Check out the menu and order online at BlueLineDeli.com. Also, big thanks to Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. And a huge thanks to Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, Razor and Kniff are ready to fight for you. Call 516-742-7600 for a free consultation. And of course, a big thanks to Floored Media here in Rockville Center, helping this operation keep going week by week here at Hockey Night in New York. And folks, if you don't already, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Catch us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere. Rate, review. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know how terrible we're doing. And I know, folks, we talked about doing a fan video this week, but with our special guest here, we're going to push that back another week. So send in your video submissions. The one that we pick will show next week, and you will get a free t-shirt sent to you. So with that, for Stefan Rosner, for Thomas Hickey, I'm Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night in New York. Have a great rest of your Sunday night.